Hello everyone, this is my second video for a GCSE revision guide for students. First of all, thank you to everyone who voted on my Twitter poll. I had over 170 votes to decide what topic I was going to be covering in this video, and Macbeth won the overwhelming majority. So what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to look at Macbeth, the character. I'm going to go through lots of key quotes to do with Macbeth, what happens to him within the play, and basically just talk through everything that happens to him, the kind of character he is, and the themes that are associated with Macbeth as well. So the first quote that I'm going to look at this morning is actually not one from Macbeth, it's from the witches right in the very first scene of the play. The three witches meet before we see any of the other characters as an audience. They talk about Macbeth, and the third witch says they're to meet with Macbeth. So even though we've actually not met the character Macbeth in the play yet, we do actually see the three witches talking about Macbeth. Now you have to remember this play was performed in what's called the Jacobean period, which means that King James was the King of England and also the King of Scotland at the time. People at that time really did believe in witches and witchcraft. They genuinely believed that witches were real. So to see three actors dressed up as witches right at the start of the play would be an indication or a signifier to the audience that they are associated with evil. So to have three characters who are associated with evil talk about Macbeth also, as a byproduct, associates Macbeth with evil as well. So even before we've met the character of Macbeth, we're already thinking about him and tying him into the idea of evil right at the start of the play. And then later on, in Act 1, Scene 2, we learn that there's been a massive battle that's been taking place. And King Duncan, his position is a threat within this battle, and luckily for him, his soldiers have won the battle, and we hear lots of reports about what's happened, but also about the bravery of Macbeth as he's fighting for his king. And what Duncan talks about is how brave and how noble Macbeth is, and as you can see from the quote here, he says what the existing Thane of Cawdor has lost, noble Macbeth hath won. So the Thane of Cawdor was kind of like an earl or a duke in the king's court, quite a powerful person. We find out in this scene that he's a traitor, that he's gone against his king. And so Duncan is going to reward Macbeth with the title of Thane of Cawdor basically, and reward him for his success in battle. So Macbeth is not only associated with evil already, but the title of Thane of Cawdor is associated with being a traitor, and that's the title that Macbeth will go on to receive a little bit later on in the play. But at the start of the play, Macbeth is shown to be a brave warrior, a noble fighter, so essentially a good person. And then in Act 1, Scene 3, we see Macbeth for the first time. So it takes a couple of scenes even before we get to meet the main character, the main protagonist. And Macbeth's first words are, "So fair and foul a day I have not seen." Now what's interesting about this quote is this use of fair and foul, that echoes, that repeats what the witches were talking about at the start of the play. And they talked about fair is foul and foul is fair. So even without realising it, Macbeth is sounding like the witches. So in terms of the audience's consciousness, they're associating Macbeth with evil yet again, just because of the words that he's using. So it's quite clever from Shakespeare. He just drops in those words that they don't mean anything to Macbeth at the moment, but just by using that choice of language, he's being associated with the witches. Banquo is Macbeth's friend. They fought in battle together. They're quite close at the start of the play. But when Macbeth and Banquo then come across the witches, and the witches say to Macbeth, "All hail Macbeth, you are Thane of Glamis now, but you'll become Thane of Cawdor, and you'll be king hereafter." So the witches say to Macbeth, "You're going to become king." Now, as I mentioned previously, witches were associated with the devil and with evil in the Jacobean period. So Macbeth listens to what they say, Banquo is much more cynical and suspicious of the witches, which is really the kind of attitude that you should have had as a member of the Jacobean society. But Macbeth listens, so he's willing to listen to evil, which again, we start to question his character a little bit. But the witches give him this prophecy and they say, you will become king. And Banquo makes it really clear to Macbeth, we shouldn't listen to the witches. They try to win us with little things, with trifles. They are associated with evil, they are the work of the devil, so we shouldn't listen to them. But Macbeth can't help himself, he really suspects, he really listens to these witches and takes into account what they're saying. And he says, if you look at that second quote there, he says, you know, why do I yield to that suggestion that really affects me? And what he's hinting at here is the possibility of actually killing his king so that he can become king himself. So Macbeth, in an aside, which means that he's not talking to the other characters, he's just talking to himself, but it means as an audience we can understand his thoughts. He tells us that he's actually seriously thinking about doing this and actually killing his king. So no, the witches have not said you need to kill the king. They just said you will become king hereafter. But that idea of murder, of being a traitor, is in Macbeth's head. So despite being a brave soldier and a noble warrior, he's willing to think about some pretty awful things as well.